Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to the Inner Voice Show, the show that's about you, about your life, and everything that matters to you from a psychological perspective. In this show, I usually talk to experts in the psychology field. Today, I'm going to bring you actually a I'm excited to bring you a very important person that I think it's important for you to see what she has to say. Her name is Chelo Alvarez-Stehle, and she's a film director. She's a documentary film director. I usually don't have artists here. Why her? It's because she's done an amazing job on a documentary which is very close to my heart and probably close to most of your heart. Most of us have gone through some sort of issue or trauma that has been in our life and has affected our life. And the documentary is about trafficking and sexual abuse. Now, I just want to tell you that when I saw this documentary, I was frozen in my place, and then I also became alive with emotions that were supposed to be there. So when I saw the film, I asked her if she could please come to my show, and so I could share her and the documentary parts of it with all of you. So please be with me, and we'll be back in a couple of seconds with Chelo Alvarez-Stehle. Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to Inner Voice Show. On this episode, we're going to talk about relationship, finances, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm an author and an international speaker. I have hosted my own television show, Inner Voice, in a satellite program for 16 years. Whether it's premarital counseling or through their marriage, how to deal with children, and if they're going through a divorce, to teach them how to communicate better together. In actuality, I think my job is very important to work with individuals and the couples in order to make the most important relationship of their life healthy, which makes them healthy. On my Inner Voice show, I actually interview some of the prominent psychologists and entertainers in English, and I also speak to some of the psychotherapists who are Iranians and the artists who are Iranians, and I speak in Persian to the Persian population around the world, from Iran or Europe or Japan, Australia, all over the United States and Canada, because obviously I was born in Iran.
Where's Dr. Zeine? Dr. Zeine?
Hello.
You also have been trained in my specific methodology and techniques, correct?
Yes.
Are you willing to talk to her after this show?
Absolutely.
And tell her the step-by-step that she needs to do to deal with what I believe is an addictive personality?
Yes, absolutely. The family goes through a lot. For boys who are becoming girls, the fathers of the family suffer. They will keep being confused. They look at all the childhood pictures that they've took of their son, and now they look at somebody who's standing in front of them and supposed to be their daughter. Coming up, I'm going to be talking to a psychotherapist about awareness integration model. You really want to know what that is, huh? Coming up. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist, and I'm here with Nasreen Bafordari, licensed marriage and family therapist. We're going to talk about awareness integration model, a psychological model that I have originated, and Nasreen Bafordari is one of the first therapists who has actually learned and has been utilizing it with her clients. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an honor.
Some of the major topics that I actually talk to my clients who are couples are first talking about sexuality. Many people don't know how to talk about sex. Concept of communication about it is something that I actually have to teach the couples in how to do. We talk about sexuality. Many people come into their sexuality in a very automatic way. We can go through the whole experience and wham, have a great time. But being with another human being, it actually takes skills. So becoming aware of every area of how we think, how we behave, how we feel,
how we communicate with another human being in order to have an amazing sexuality is part of what we also teach in this AI model.
So much of our sexuality.
People don't talk about finances a lot. They don't have a system. They come from two backgrounds of how they actually have created their finances, and I have to help them create a system and have a great communication in how to follow the system. Another main topic is when they actually have children. Now remember, two people, two backgrounds, two cultures, two sets of values are coming in, and now they actually have to bring those together, and that's where they need how to communicate, be flexible, and really negotiate on one way of handling their kids. Duet, sometimes you guys are entering each other's space and singing together, and then solo. How does that experience for you?
The funny thing is,
in-laws, we have to deal with them. They're always there. They're going to be there. We didn't marry them, but they came with a package. So somehow we have to really, really work with it. And if I have to actually add one more topic that I've had to deal with a lot of couples and individuals is addiction. Whether it's an addiction to alcohol or drugs, pornography, cell phone, computers, is one aspect that really, really affects the person's life and in their relationship. With people who are going through recovery from addiction, they've had some sort of a trauma in their childhood. And when we've worked with the awareness integration model with them, clearing the trauma, the choice and the chance for them to relapsing is really minimized. I have been in the field of psychology for about 25 years. I started with seminars in ontology and psychology almost the same time. And I know you were part of the pilot study that we did, and in the result of that pilot study was that people were actually minimizing the depression 76%. They were minimizing anxiety 64%, and their self-esteem was rising about 43%. Now those are astonishing numbers.
You know, I wanted to go through it. I wanted to experience what my clients would experience. So I asked you to work on me as a model for the group that was being trained.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, you can see more on my website and my YouTube channel. And if you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. Bye-bye.
Well, welcome back to our Inner Voice show, and thank you, Chelo, for having us with you and having you here with all of my audience.
Well, thank you so much, Foojan. I'm very excited at this opportunity. Thank you for having me.
So I was talking to the audience and saying that when I actually saw I actually saw the whole documentary, and it was amazing to me that the experience of seeing this documentary was chilling and then yet very emotional. Like I went blank for a while and then I got very, very emotional. And I was wondering, what is it that you chose to take this topic and work on it as a director?
Well, my career has been very unorthodox. I have to say I didn't go to film school, and I didn't go to journalism school, but first I became a reporter, and I was a correspondent for a newspaper in Spain, Daily El Mundo, from Tokyo and then from Los Angeles. But at one point I realized that what I wanted to write about needed to be something that I felt really passionate about, that came from inside, that came from my heart. Otherwise, the words were just taken by the wind. And so I started writing about issues, women's rights issues, issues that really touched me, that I felt really, really drawn to. And pretty soon I was reporting around the world for different magazines, also always in Spain in the beginning. And it was always like victims of rape, women that have been sexually victimized, and in ethnic cleansings, for example, in Bhutan. Or I went to Australia and I reported on the child sexual abuse that the Australian Aboriginal children were subject to when they were taken from their families and placed in orphanages and religious institutions, and etc., etc. For some reason, this subject of sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, rape, forced prostitution started to come to me. And then I did some reporting on sexual trafficking in Asia, especially in Nepal and in India. And first I was just covering as a reporter, and I was writing about it, and then people started telling me, well, you need to bring this to the bigger screen, and I was like, well, no, I never went to film school, how am I going to do that? But I was in Los Angeles, and it was, the big screen was calling me, not because it's big screen and I wanted the fame, but because I felt, well, these issues need to come to a wider audience.
Absolutely.
We need to touch every woman and every man, every little boy and every little girl in the world out there. And by using the audiovisual medium, I think we're going to have a bigger reach. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Why not? There is no limit to what one person can do. I mean, this is the beautiful thing. What I feel inside of me is like, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. If I don't know something, I'm going to ask, I'm going to learn, I'm going to surround myself by a great team of people, and this is what happened. I was able to gather an incredible group of filmmakers that taught me along the way, and that enabled me to really bring this project to fruition.
And it's interesting because concept of sexual abuse is around the world. It's about female, men, male. It happens all over. Sex trafficking might not happen everywhere, but it happens in a lot of different places. Prostitution happens almost in every country. And I get it that you have also looked at it from a global perspective because you have experienced and gone through, in your journalism days, gone through all of it. And then you've brought it into a couple of stories that these stories tell pretty much the story and the essence of this story of many, many people around the world.
Yeah, well, I had to interview many, many people until I decided where I wanted to go. So I started doing a documentary on, in the beginning it was going to be on sex trafficking, so I interviewed many women and I followed their stories. We edited, we made a lot of work with those stories, but then at one point I realized that I needed to concentrate on someone that would represent the full spectrum of sexual assault, abuse. And I found Virginia Zayas, a Mexican-American woman whose story is really appalling, because since she was a child she was abused at home, and then she was gang raped, and then she was kidnapped by a sex trafficking ring and forced into prostitution with her 6-month-old baby. And I felt her story was fascinating, not only because she was a survivor of all kinds of terrible abuse, but because she also started to come out of victimhood and became a very empowered survivor. But she started telling her story, but one of the first things she did, apart from just telling her story of trafficking, that everybody feels like trafficking nowadays is a hot topic, no, she started within her family, breaking the abuse with her own mother. And that inspired me a lot. That's what changed also the film, that was going to be basically a reportage into a journey of introspection.
Let's go and look at the documentary film trailer, actually, because I think that it's important for everyone to be able to see what we're talking about. So Marjan, if I'm asking the director to go ahead and put the documentary for us, so you have a little bit of a sense, and then we're going to be back and talking about the effect of that on the audience and how they receive it and what happens and the effect of actually sexual abuse on people.
It's just 3 minutes long. So
3 minutes long. Go ahead.
Hice algo con cartones y con lazos y con hojas y palos para poder yo caminar, porque no tenía guaraches. Y realmente creí que no iba a escapar. Estaba asustada. Y estaba un carro esperándome, y me metían a la cajuela con toda la niña. Eso era el enfoque de todo mi sufrimiento, que me estuvieran prostituyendo.
Hello, my name is Chelo Alvarez-Stehle. I'm a journalist and documentary filmmaker. My passion against this issue was ignited years ago when I reported on young girls that had been forced into prostitution after crossing the border in search of a better life. Like so many other girls in danger, our film's main subject, Virginia, migrated back and forth between Mexico and the United States, fleeing abuse and trafficking. Virginia recounts the horror of being kidnapped with her baby by a sex trafficking ring after running away from a life engulfed in a cycle of sexual abuse. She then spent years rebuilding her life and waging her own war against sexual exploitation. Intertwined with Virginia's story is my own. Inspired by her courage, I decided to confront the dark alleys of sexual abuse in my own past. This film is part of a global movement, and we invite you to join us, but we need your help, so that we can take this film to audiences around the world and inspire them to join the fight against sexual abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. And we're going to encourage others to break their silence against their own experiences of sexual exploitation.
Yo fui violada, me quedé en silencio muchísimos años.
So we can address this endemic problem, one emboldened survivor at a time. Finally, after 8 years of hard work, the documentary is finished. The next step is to take it to the world. Right now, the power to bring these stories to light, the power to empower others to break their own silence, the power to take this issue out of the shadows is in your hands. And we have a fantastic reason for you to give. If we raise $25,000 in pledges by March 3rd, Beacon will match your contribution dollar for dollar, but only if you give today. Please pledge whatever amount you can. We need your help. Thank you so much.
Well, as you see, at the end, it would be great if you go ahead and go to sandsofsilence.org and contribute to the documentary to be able to go to the festivals, because I think this is what the path is, first of all, in order to put it in the festivals, have it be recognized all over the world, and then to have it be shown, and then take that and make it into more of a therapeutic place where when people are showing it in the smaller places where people can, as they're affected, that they can also have the resources and other people to support them.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. Anything you can do would be a great help. We launched this campaign. Well, first I had to say that this documentary film has taken 8 years to make, and it really was done with the hearts of the people that felt the passion behind it, that felt the need for this film to come out and touch other people's hearts. So that's why at this point, okay, we finished, we completed the documentary, but we need the help of everyone that trusts in its power to come to rise to the occasion and allow us to cover all the aspects of outreach and distribution of the film.
Talking about affecting, I remember when I saw the documentary, I was just kind of like dissociated and frozen and numb, and then had a lot of emotions at the end. But because we were in a big theater with everybody there, I remember kind of just holding it. And when I saw this clip again in my own office, in a closed office, as I was preparing it for the show, I started bawling. I was just crying and crying. And I was looking at the effect that I had. I mean, obviously, I've been abused since from age 3 to 8 with different men and different ways. So I know that for someone who has been abused, it really hit home. It brought a lot of emotions, and then yet it was so done in such a beautiful way where it's just like healing is embedded, the acceptance, the love and the caring is embedded side by side with the pain. So I can really tell how much it could affect when people see it, for people who have been abused or for people who have not been abused but they know of someone, and the ratio are so high in the world that I'm sure everybody knows someone who's been abused at one point. and that's the whole purpose of it. That's why it touched your heart, it called you, and you in turn came to put it into such a place where it could be a gift to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, thank you for sharing that you were also abused, because in my case, it took me many years to realize that I also had been abused. But I didn't want to call it abuse. I was minimizing the experience, like so many millions of women out there, and men. We minimize the abuse. No, our abuse is not that important. Well, no, it was a little thing. But you don't want to face it, because you know that when you have to face it, it's going to be hard. So we don't want that hard experience. And we tend not to face it, but we don't realize that we are hiding it. And it's there, it's palpitating inside. And one day it's going to come out. And for me, the day I decided I cannot keep quiet, I cannot keep silent, I am asking every woman I meet to tell me their story, to be brave, to volunteer their story, their pain, to share it so that we can heal other women and other men that have been abused. And I said, I have a responsibility. Who am I cheating? I was cheating myself. I started feeling, oh my God, I'm cheating myself. No, as a filmmaker, as a journalist, as a storyteller, I have a responsibility of coming out with my own story of abuse. It doesn't matter if it was little.
Yeah.
And then,
no little or large.
Exactly. And then once you start pulling, you realize you just start pulling it from this thread, and you have no idea what you face. But it's such a healing process. We had a small screening. The only screenings we're doing now, even though that was in a theater that looked large, are only private, because we still the film has not yet been released officially. But we did a small screening to a very small group of students, high school students, in the last year, and it was incredible, because the first question was, how do you manage to forgive? Because I cannot forgive my perpetrators. And I was almost in tears, because I couldn't imagine that after telling the stories that we tell in the film, what that young girl took from the film was the hope that you can heal, that you can forgive. And then she kept on asking, and how did you heal? And I said, well, I had to do a lot of inner work, a lot of, go to a therapist, and I did work a lot, but I also made this film. So if it was like, well, if you can write in your diary, if you can create a piece of art, if you can help other people, that's going to help you heal. So it was a beautiful interaction, and I was very moved and touched by it. Yeah.
It does touch. I remember when the same thing that you talked about, minimizing. I minimized it for so long, and then I started going to therapy, and then learning from that, and then that also brought me to become a therapist and become a healer. And I know that in the past 25 years, which I've worked with different populations and everywhere, the trauma of sexual abuse has been amazing in a way that it infiltrates every layer of your psyche, in a way that in relatedness with people, in relatedness in relationships, in relatedness into sexuality, in relatedness in your self-esteem and who you are, in relatedness in the power that you have in bringing yourself out there and expressing anywhere your power, whether it's in work or in finances or in all sorts of relationships, in relatedness in how you are with your next generation and your children, and how you could be overprotective or not nonchalant at all and be in complete denial. All of those come in such a layers that we don't realize. We don't realize how much that's, like you said, is small or a horrific, all across affects someone in their life, in all of their life, and the types of emotions that are always there, the emotions of sadness and guilt and shame, and all of it is like encompassing, and more than anything the powerlessness that comes with it. It's so encompassing that it infiltrates everyone. So it is important in how to begin to express it, because it seems like people who express it for the first time, they start getting empowered by that expression, however that expression is.
Yes, and actually one of the things that we are doing with the film, because it has this ability of reaching out to the hearts of people and make them want to speak. We have one of the things that we're doing now when we have a screening is we invite therapists, professional counselors to be there in the audience just in case someone really wants to speak out and or has a hard time, so that they're there as a support. And that's a beautiful thing. I never thought that we needed to do that, but some people started to having even cathartic experiences after seeing the movie, because it really moved them, and they realized. I mean, I remember a friend who she was 60 years old, but still she had that cathartic experience that, oh my God, I've always kept this for myself, but I can talk about it, I can bring it out, I can heal. And it's just like a beautiful. It's very fulfilling for me as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, as an independent documentary filmmaker, that it takes us such an effort to make this type of films that come from a passion. They are labor of love, they come from our heart, and it's very fulfilling to see that people are reacting in this way that is going to empower people. And one of the surprises by doing these small screenings is we are seeing that even though the subjects of the film, we have, one of the subjects, the main subject is Virginia, that was trafficked with her baby, and she was also a victim of a cycle of sexual violence since she was a child. But also we see the baby that she was trafficked to by the trafficking ring in Mexico. We see this baby growing up, and by the end of the film, she's 17, and she becomes this empowered teenager, and she's
beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Lala Isaias. She is not one of the main subjects of the film, but she's so powerful that she becomes main subject in the film. And there are other women in the film that are older and are telling their stories. So first I thought, well, we only have one young person. But what is happening is that young people, pure people who don't have preconceived ideas, they are touched. Like this young student, another student the other day, same thing. She said, what I love about your film is that really helps us not minimize our own experiences, and that it touches about all types of abuse, that it doesn't only focus on trafficking.
Right.
And so I feel like is really an incredible tool for organizations, for therapists to be able to use, and to be able to, in a very, how can I say, it's a film that you can bring home and you can watch with your family, and it's going to make you talk with your family in a positive way.
Yeah.
You know, it gives hope for people it gives resources to people, ideas. Oh, I can maybe write a letter to this person, or I can talk to my partner, or I can talk to my sister.
But what is the fascinating concept about sexual abuse, even rape, and even if you've had even prostitution or sexual trafficking, any of those concepts, I know that they hold such a shame that people usually don't talk about it. I had someone who told me at age 55 that I married this person without wanting because I was abused and I was raped at age 14 by a family member, and because I knew that I was damaged goods, therefore I no longer cared who was going to marry me. So now I'm this physical abusive relationship for the past 30-some years, and today, around she's about 55, today is the first time I was able to say this has happened to me. No one in the world, no one except the person who raped me, knows this about me and my life. And how that experience and that shame changed her whole life, in a sense, because she told herself, I don't care who I marry. And that concept of I don't care left her in a space that beyond that, her whole life was changed, being in abuse, in a physical abuse concept. So the shame itself and the isolation that we feel, it remains there unless something triggers it and brings it out. And this film triggers it, it brings it out. And another thing is it reminds us we're not alone. The ratio is so high, and I know you have some statistics about around the world.
Yeah, well, my memory is going with age, but I mean, I think it's 1 in every 5 girls have been sexually abused, and 1 in every 20 boys have been sexually abused. 1 in every 4 women experience some kind of sexual assault in their lifetime.
Yes.
The rates are so appalling.
Yes, they are.
And yet we are not talking.
And even rape is like every minute there's 1 rape around the world for women. I mean, the ratios are high.
And the interesting thing is that sometimes we think that this in developing countries, where this is a cultural issue. It's not true. The rate of abuse in America, in Europe, in developed countries is enormous and is very pervasive.
And actually we have more statistics in more developed countries than we do have in non-developed. We don't have statistics there. We know it, but we don't have statistics.
And one of the reasons why actually I turned the direction of the film from being a film purely on sex trafficking to being a film that also dealt with sexual abuse, child abuse, and then rape, etc., was because I realized that the whole media is focused on sex trafficking. It becomes a hot topic, and everybody is looking at, sex trafficking is a horror, we have to do something about it. Okay, very good, we definitely have to do something about it, and I've written a lot, done documentaries about it, and it's a very important issue. But what is happening with the epidemic of sexual abuse and gang rape and rape in our colleges? That is happening right here.
Yes, it is.
That is happening right here. It's happening in Iran. It's happening in Spain. It's happening in France. It's happening in India. It's happening around the world. It doesn't matter the country you live in.
And it's sad, Chelo, that a lot of times when we're talking about rape victims, that rape victims feel like I have to hide it because even if I go to the law enforcement and want to try it, somehow it becomes my fault.
Yeah.
Like if you are not a child and if you are a teenager, or if you are a young adult, or anyone who is beyond the age of 12, then suddenly becomes like your fault, like you instigated it, or you asked for it, or you did and provoke it, versus, no, rape is rape, and that's not acceptable, no matter how you look at it. So there's definitely a culture where if you're a child molester, okay, there's a shame on you, and there's an innocent child here. But if you are no longer a child, and if you are a female who has gone beyond childhood, then somehow you are part of the game. Which is not accurate. You're not part of the game. Nobody has ever asked for violence.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever asked to be forced upon. Yes, women request and want and desire, and they have the right to want to have sex, but that does not need to turn into violence or rape or uncalled. So there is also a shifting of that culture and knowing how that affects a person when they are raped.
And actually, I was remembering one statistic is 1 in 4 young girls that go into college experience some kind of sexual assault while in college. So it's not even it doesn't even pertain to a particular social class. It's not about being educated or uneducated. It really permeates through all the layers of our society. And so the education has to take place, but in all the layers of our society. We have to educate our boys who are becoming the men of tomorrow. We have to educate our girls, and we have to educate ourselves. There is a lot of sexual violence in couples. And you can be an older woman, and you can be in a relationship like the woman you were just talking about, 30 years in an abusive relationship. And we are not talking about it neither. It still is taboo. So we need to, that's why our film, we say, it gives you the courage to speak out against sexual violence, whatever type of sexual violence you've been subject to, because we need to bring this into the open. This needs to be a normal conversation at our dinner tables with our children. I mean, I tried to do that with my daughter too. And my husband sometimes he would say, well, don't overdo it because we don't want to instigate fear in her. But I felt like, well, with the situation as it is, I prefer that she is not fearful, but that she's just aware, that children are aware that it's not okay to trespass the bubble of your intimacy, of your privacy, of your world. It's not okay. So we need to start with little children, and then.
And also, I think culturally, we need to be aware. I remember being a little girl in Tehran, Iran. I was born there and I came here when I was 12 and a half. But I was little, and I remember when we were going on the certain streets, I'm not saying all streets, certain streets, and these streets were like bazaar streets, like you would go to shop. So it's not like weird streets, they were actually shopping business areas that you would go into. And I remember that it was very given, and people laughed at it when you walked and men just gave themselves the right to come and touch you. They would touch your breast, they would touch anywhere in your body, and they would laugh and go away. And the society, the community who was there would also laugh about it and make it into a joke. Maybe they were embarrassed, maybe they felt powerless, but it became something of an acceptable concept. Like you knew that you were going to walk on the street and either a motorcycle driver or somebody could come in and just squeeze you wherever they wanted to, and that was their prerogative, and it wasn't like anybody was going to arrest them or reprimand them or anything. So it's also a cultural piece where we have the jokes, or we have we put it in humor, or we minimize it in the culture, allowing a certain type of a conversation to go. Or I remember, for example, when I've had clients who attempted to tell their parents some of these things, and they just denied it. They said, no, it didn't happen, or laughed about it. And the type of denial and making it into a comedy in order to minimize it, it takes away from any type of action that can be taken, and for the issue to be taken seriously, where it's harmful. It really is harmful for any child, girl or a boy, or any human being, female or male, to be violated in a sexual way.
Yeah, I think this is a responsibility we all have as a society, as members of the society, no matter what culture you are in. Because I had the same experience growing up in Spain. As a teenager, you knew you were going to be subject to all kinds of groping, etc., going on the streets. I had the same thing. But then I went to Japan as a reporter. I was working in Tokyo, and in the middle of the subway, I had people who were trying to grope me, who were trying to put their hands wherever they could. And when I remember an incident, it's just kind of funny, but I caught someone, and then I pulled the hand out, and I started shouting in English, and I said, this man is trying to touch me. Everybody, all the eyes around me, and we were squeezed in a subway in Tokyo. Everyone closed their eyes. Nobody was there for me. And maybe in Spain it would have been the same, because it's like they would have laughed. In Spain they wouldn't have closed their eyes, but they would have laughed at me. Oh, it's okay, and it's not okay. We have to say, no, it's not okay, no jokes, this is serious, because we allow one little thing and then it goes in crescendo, and we are all responsible for that. If we see something, we have to say it. Even in your family, you have to say, when you think something is not appropriate, you say, that wasn't appropriate. You don't touch my little child. Even if it's innocent, it's not that innocent. Please teach her or teach him that he should not be touched in any way, that he should be respected. And I think that each one of us, we can start breaking the silence, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Right. It can be a little thing, like a little tiny step. And you're going to feel proud of yourself, and proud because you may be saving that little child from a much bigger abuse.
Yes. Absolutely. So, I'm going to say it again. Go to soundsofsilence.org. The homepage will take you to the place where, if you choose, you can go ahead and contribute so that we could take this, the Chelo and her team can take this to the festivals, and then from there to be able to present it to the world in that way. And if not, you can just be a part of that group, so that as the movie comes out and it's going to be on the screens, that you'll know, you'll hear about it, and you can definitely see it, and take your friends and family there. Chelo, what is your vision about this film, and how do you suppose at this time, I mean, life will probably take this and take it wherever it needs to be, but as you see it, where would you like to see this movie in a year from now?
Yeah, so a year from now, I would like for this movie to be considered a tool for organizations that are working on these issues against sexual violence against women, against sexual abuse, against sexual trafficking, so that they can use it for their networks as a tool that really helps women to break the silence and take a step towards healing and to become even advocates, because the women in the film they're not only are transformed from victims into survivors, but then they're empowered survivors that create organizations to help other women. So I feel that I would love for that to happen, but also I would love it for it to have broadcasts in televisions around the world, so that it can be brought to those people that are never going to go to a meeting with a nonprofit, but that they are in their homes, and that when they see this film, or they choose it on Netflix, or they choose it on a streaming video platform, they can watch it in the intimity of their homes with their loved ones, with their family members, or maybe just alone, to allow themselves to express whatever they want to express. They can start crying or not, or they can start thinking, maybe I need to do something about this thing that happened many years ago or just yesterday, and maybe I can take a step. And I would love for those broadcasts to take place. That would be really a dream, because then you can really get to millions of people in different countries in the world too.
That's fantastic. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for
so
bringing your baby of 8 years to my show and to the audience. And thank you for taking on this cause, because I do think that it's been long due. It really has. We've talked about many different aspects, many types of violence, and this issue itself has not been necessarily dealt with. I know that it has been dealt with recently in the past couple of years in the world with the church and state and all of that, but to look at it from different perspective of the child abuse itself, like you said, trafficking has its own concept, or gang rape has its own concept, or rape has its own concept, and a lot of these conversations have been taking place, but to bring them all together, and then underneath it all, sexuality and just the molestation itself, because I think that when it's this big of a topic, everybody's like, oh my God, we should do something. But when it's about molestation, it's as if, okay, it's just there.
Can I jump in? Just one little comment. Very important that we didn't mention is that a huge percentage of women that are in prostitution or that are forced into prostitution are victims of child abuse or rape.
Yes.
Because you become a victim, you become vulnerable, so you're much more likely to be trafficked.
Right.
That happens with runaway kids, and it happens with many other
Absolutely.
Huge populations. Yeah.
So when you look at some of the root cause, which is actually sexual molestation and sexual abuse of young girls and boys and teens, then we can see the rest of it. And not many films have actually also focused on this area and have brought it into a public, because when we're talking about segregated group, then only people who feel connected to that, if they've been raped or gang raped and all of that, they would feel connected. But when we're talking about sexual abuse at the core, you have much more people, because we're looking at the statistic. A huge population is being touched. And again, this movie is done with females, but sexual abuse is not just about women, it's also about men. So it's just that the ratio of women to men has been higher, the ratio of rape has been higher. Not that men don't get raped, they also get raped, it's just that the ratio is higher. And so that's why, like, you look at Afghanistan, it's like the boys, the little boys, and even teenage boys are consistently being abused, raped, and all of those. But I think just that around the world, in this context, the women have been abused and raped more. But just for the audience to know that the experience and the shame and the pain that goes through, it also goes for both female and male.
Definitely, yeah. Very much.
The last words? Do you have any last words that you want to tell the audience?
I would like for you to maybe take today a little step and just think if there is, or feel if there is something that you want to tell someone in your life to help them, or that you want to break the silence on something that has happened to you. I would just encourage you to take that step, because you know, you're gonna see a beautiful path in front of you of healing and of feeling empowered to help other people, and you're gonna help all of us to put an end to this epidemic of sexual abuse.
So take the step, go to sandsofsilence.org and take the step there. Thank you so much for being with us, and I hope that Chelo's baby film has really touched your heart, and it will touch your heart, and if you have been sexually abused, that you will take on the course of healing yourself, and if you know anyone who has been sexually abused, to support them, to accept them, and to give a hand to them so they can also take on healing themselves and being empowered. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Chelo, for being here.
Thank you so much, Foojan, for having me. And if you need resources, please also go to our website.
Wonderful. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and create a wonderful world for yourself and others. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank